Christmas and welcome to Your Kingdom Today. My special guest is Scott Wheeler, a man who gave me my first break in the business. Join me now in giving Scott a warm welcome. Scott, welcome to the show. I'm delighted to have you on. I'm honoured to have you on, and I'm glad you've brought some of your books with you. Can you tell me, I know all our readers are familiar with you, but I'm not familiar with how you got your first break in the writing business.
Well, let's start by saying this seems really strange.
Okay.
I'm used to sitting over there.
This
I'm
is
used
your
to calling.
seat.
I'm used to calling the shots, and you know what? Part of me actually, I actually prefer almost to be sitting here because the interviewer actually has a harder role than viewers might realize, because
Isn't it true?
not only are you listening to me, but you're also having to formulate the next question, and the interviewer really does have a hard role. And
But that's why it's such a pleasure for me to have you there as a guest, relaxing. I want you to let your thoughts flow and your memories drift out so that
Right.
our viewers can get a really good feel of who the real Scott Wheeler is.
and slap me one if I start taking control of the interview, because every once in a while, I actually, when I'm being interviewed, the next thing the interviewer knows, I've turned the tables without even trying.
But you're like me, you can spin on a sixpence, and I like that. That's why you're here. Now, what gave you your first break in writing?
What gave me my first break? Well, I have teachers who are probably watching this show
Okay.
who are thinking, what the heck?
Yeah.
How did he do that?
And look at you now, Scott.
Because I was not somebody who was destined to be a writer. One of my good friends and another writer is Tanya Souza.
Yeah.
We graduated the same year, except for she graduated with my wife from the other school.
Got you.
Tanya talks about ever since she was young, she had this love of writing, and she seemed to get it right. I did everything wrong. I really was not a writer. And to make a long story short, after I had children, I went back to college, and I was so weak in writing, the advisor said, hey, you need to take some classes to improve your writing. Well, I have a degree in psychology, but then I ended up writing for a living, but I morphed the two together. But in reality, I now look back at my writing from high school, and I realize I really wasn't that bad. I had teachers, and it was probably the right thing at the time. I had all my sentence structures pretty good, my paragraphs, but they focused on everything I didn't have.
Yeah.
I still can't tell you what a dangling participle is, and so on and so forth. But I had an ability to tell stories, so even though my grades really didn't show it, I still think I now look back at some of the work I kept and say, well, you know what? It was there. It just needed to be worked on. And I will never be a perfect writer.
Nope, nor
That's
I.
why I have Janine Young, my editor, and she allows me, a good editor, what they will do is they will edit you, but they don't rob you of your voice. Because I am a Vermonter. I don't know if you noticed, I'm a real Vermonter.
I wouldn't have guessed.
It's kind of like you trying to hide the fact that you're from England. You can't do it.
You can't, because our syntactical structure and it's different, the way we'll apply grammar is different.
Right.
And I'm like you, at school I didn't shine as a writer. I was thrown out of the sports team, the music team and the English class because my syntax and grammar was considered so poor. They didn't give me a chance, but like I said, when I got to Vermont, you were the first person who gave me a chance. I'd written a book, you invited me on your show. I've now done my second book. So you have actually been a great mentor to me, and you don't even realize this, Scott.
Yeah, you actually
I said
dedicated your first book to me without even meeting me.
Yep.
But you know, I think
I saw you coming out the Pet Grim and Paula, and
Right.
I'd read your Northland Journal for years, and also read your Rum Runners, and I thought, this guy's a maverick. I know you wouldn't like to call yourself a maverick, but you came out of the school system, and you were not encouraged to be an author or a writer or a broadcaster or a television presenter, yet you're all of these things. And also you had the massive event at Bel Air just a couple of days ago. People in the
Pearl
community...
Harbor.
Yeah, the Pearl Harbor Memorial Day. And people in Vermont recognize you as you know, the chronicler of Vermont, I call you, but they recognise you as a writer, a broadcaster, a presenter, and that's all without the grammar and the syntax and the dropped whatnots that you call them. I say to hell with
And
these.
the thing is you get, everybody has a story to tell, and the thing is I invite you on because I wanted to give you a chance. And if you look at my show, is you never know who I'm going to bring on. I have this young woman who comes on who has Down syndrome. She comes on and she's super
articulate.
Right.
And projects brilliantly.
Right. And then I have people who have suffered suicides in their family, and these are people who want their stories told. And a lot of times what the media does is they keep going to the same people over and over and over, and it doesn't give the people a voice who really have never had a voice. Like, in a sense, because I grew up poor, but I grew up very rich.
And my dad was a bone and scrap, rag and bone man in Britain. I'm going around collecting scrap. And I know your dad was going around collecting antiques and second-hand gear.
He loved antiques. He did the antenna business. So we grew up poor, but we grew up so rich. As I look back, and I wouldn't want it any other way. But in growing up, I will say, is I don't think that people without a lot of money and a lot of influence, they never get a real voice. That's how come I go out of my way to give everybody else a voice.
That's what I see about you. You are not elitist. You may have made it, but you don't hang out with the hoi polloi or the hoity-toity. You get right down there and you interview everyone. And what I think is your psychology degree has actually really helped your writing, because that's what's helped you connect with all these lost, forgotten, neglected people in the community who do have a story, and I think that's how you're.
But I also have
but
I also have a warped sense of humor.
No,
I do.
No.
I can find goodness everywhere. I can find humor. Like when I go, like a lot of people don't understand how, a lot of people are hesitant to go into those nursing homes, and. I go in there and I love seeing the residents. I tell people all the time is if you really want to feel appreciated, just go into a nursing home, visit with the people. And if you're a guy, boy, I get more hugs with people who are 80, 90 years old than I've gotten hugs from my wife in the last 30 years. And I just love, I love working with people. I don't care, I've worked with people who have a lot of name recognition. That's all well and fine.
Yeah, that's always going to happen.
But on the other hand, I like to dig out these people who really never had a voice or never tried to get their stories out. Like a lot of people have been amazed when I've posted about. I've been working on an article about my now 90-something-year-old junior high teacher. We always knew him as Mr. Hall. Mr. Hall never spoke about it, but he fought in some of the worst battles of World War II. He's a recipient of the Purple Heart. And a lot of people say, well, people don't like to talk about their war stories. That isn't true. A lot of times, most veterans want to tell their story, but nobody wants to listen.
Yep.
And that's really true not only with military, but that's really true of even older people. Is people get so busy, they don't take the time to listen. And I have some of my greatest. I run into some of my greatest interviewees in the
care homes or
even the grocery stores. I have, because I've even had a recovering heroin user on my show. Yep. Since then, I had another current heroin user come up to me in the store, feel totally comfortable, saying, "Hey, great." He says, "I'm a heroin addict, and I really want to." And I don't judge people either.
No.
I might not necessarily approve of somebody's lifestyle, but it isn't my place to.
Absolutely. I know we spoke about this before. You told me that you're totally impartial, and
I try to be. None of us are totally impartial. we can try to be impartial.
You're right, there's always going to be that niggling back bit of us, but I think what people respect you for is that you do acknowledge their stories, no matter if those stories are dark, dangerous, light, pleasant, heroic.
Right.
You know, you've interviewed so many people. Can you tell me who perhaps the most interesting to you was?
Oh, that's so hard.
It's the worst question to ask.
It is because every story has meaning or purpose for me, because but I guess the one group I've really enjoyed doing are the Depression era folks who grew up during the Great Depression, and some of them went on to fight in World War II. But the Great Depression people, they remind me not to whine, at least not to whine as much, because they had it so much worse in so many ways. You know, our hard times now is, well, geez, we don't have the latest cell phone. Or, geez, my car isn't quite brand new. You know, with them, a lot of them were so, they didn't have anything, and a lot of times they didn't know it. So, but when they did get something, they appreciated it.
They appreciated it, they maintained it, and looked after it.
Right. But on the flip side, there's also a sadness for some people of the Great Depression. I've actually met more than my share of the people who grew up in the Great Depression. They're so afraid of losing what they've earned.
Yep.
I've known people who live like paupers, who to go without, to deprive themselves, only to die, and then find out they have hundreds of thousands of dollars in the bank account because they just could not let go. So there's the extreme of today where people just, you know, kind of like they operate on credit.
Yeah.
But then you have some of these people who grew up during the Great Depression. They just couldn't part with the money. It's not that they were stingy, it's just that they're scared to spend it. And
I hear what you're saying. As a psychologist, would you say that the growing up in the Depression had affected their psyche
sure.
to a degree? It's like when some of the Jews got out of the concentration camps. Thereafter, for decades after, they were constantly starving, constantly hoarding food, constantly hoarding money, hoarding, never daring to use any of it or eat anything as a result of their damaged psyche. So,
I think so. I think
in your view.
I think no matter what, no matter growing up, it's always impacts you a bit, and for the most part, it's very positive. Like as I said, we grew up. We may have been poor, but we grew up with anything we needed.
Yeah.
And like my mother was ahead of her time in the sense of, you know, everybody talks that, well, when I was growing up, if they put the food on the table, you had to eat it. Nah, my mother was great.
Wow.
She could have 3 different meals going at once. And now with that, on the other hand, because my mother catered to our tastes, I am now one of the fussiest people. My father will eat anything that he can catch. I don't know if there's anything he won't eat. On the other hand, my mother catered to us because she was fussy too. And so
and would you say fussiness is a whimsical kind of activity? Do you get a lot of pleasure from being picky?
No, actually, I sometimes hate it.
You hate it?
No, because my wife is such a good eater. She would prefer a bowl of broccoli over a bowl of ice cream.
Wow.
And with me, it's like, there's never.
I've got to have the ice cream and a cherry on top and just the right.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say ice cream.
You.
I thought you were gonna say ice cream.
Ice cream
with broccoli.
No.
But
I mean, the English have got bad culinary taste, but not that bad, Scott.
So, but then my writing though kind of came about. It was actually on a total whim, and it goes into my love of history. My mother never knew her mother because she died in the tuberculosis epidemic.
Oh my gosh.
And my mother was only like 3 or 4, and when my mother must have been in her late 60s, 70s, I decided she'd lost all contact with her maternal family. She didn't even know where her mother was from. And my grandfather never remarried, but he did something that a lot of men of his era didn't do, is he kept the kids, because a lot of times if you lost your wife, you farmed the kids out to somebody else. He, with the help of his neighbors and family, he kept the family intact, but he well, come to find out, he had met his wife while he was working in Massachusetts, and she was from the Maritime provinces.
Oh.
And to make a long story short, I tracked the family down to Nova Scotia and Newfoundland.
Wonderful.
And these were not distant relatives. These were my mother's first cousins.
Yeah.
And so I wrote an article. I'd never written before, you know. I wrote an article about this journey of this genealogical journey, which led to a reunion in Nova Scotia. And then on a whim, I decided I'm going to submit it to the Chronicle.
Wow, that's
And the Chronicle, they liked my article so much, they then asked me to make fast forward. They contacted me. They said, well, do you want to string for us in Derby?
Wow.
Which is, to the viewers, stringing is just filling in or just covering meetings. You're not actually employed. You're just stringing for them. And I laughed at them. I laughed at Bethany Dunbar, who had called me. Bethany was a long-term Chronicle worker who I'm still friends with today. And I says, no, you've got the wrong person.
Oh.
No, we want you.
Yes.
And well, I ended up going to work for them, or just stringing for them, and one thing led to another. I actually loved doing it, and I gave up I was working in the mental health system, gave that all up, went to work for them full time, but then you can't, this is my book, my first book, Rum Runners and Revenuers, Prohibition in Vermont. Well, that came out of my time at the Chronicle because on slow news weeks, I would do history articles, because that's where I started to really, draw my interest in history. I grew up with history anyways, because my father, he loved to collect antiques. Cool. Just going to the landfill every week could be an adventure, because we would go. We would bring more home with us than we left with, but he could sell antiques all over the country. Yeah. And
in many ways, you could say your
and
dad.
I called it junk.
Junk, but it's not.
No, it wasn't. No, now I realize it, but back then it was like, this is junk. Yeah. But so he's always had his love for history, and then then what happened was, so I wanted to do a piece on Prohibition.
Gotcha.
And I don't know if you've ever, in England, if they ever tried banning alcohol or not. Did they?
They tried, but it failed miserably.
It would be kind of like trying to ban tea for your people.
This is
Probably wouldn't work.
It wouldn't. We had Oliver Cromwell ban Christmas in the 16th century, because he was, very into the Protestant way, and Christmas was seen as an entirely Catholic thing, and this is a pity. There's a great outcry about it. We've had hot chocolate banned, and tomatoes and potatoes and tobacco in the 15th century, but nothing. It's ridiculous to try and ban beer, and that's why your work was so fascinating. The pictures of people attacking barrels so that all the liquor came out, and my heart was bleeding.
But so the thing is, I realized that after I did some research, I realized there's been hundreds of books written about national prohibition, but I could find nothing relating to Vermont prohibition. Just hit and miss, but no books had been written. And so the thing is I started writing articles by contacting people who were involved in the business in one way or another, or who witnessed it. And I ended up earning a New England Press Association Award for Excellence in History Writing.
Excellent.
And then I thought, okay, I'm on to something.
You are.
And
it's like you'd untapped a vast.
Right. And so the thing is after talking to all these people, I then decided to write a book. And I will say, one of the people who've believed in me long before I believed in myself was Howard Frank Mosier, the renowned author from Irisburg, whose daughter is a Nashville performer, and well, she's a singer-songwriter who is going to be featured in the February issue of the Journal.
That's this one here.
Yep.
Yes.
Well, she was so he believed in me, and I remember I said to Howard when I bounced this idea of writing a book, I said, yeah, but I'm about 15 years too late. And he says, yeah, but you probably, it would have been nice if somebody had done this book 15 years ago when there were more people around. He said, but if you wait another 15 years, it's certainly going to be too late. So that book was published by the New England Press Association Award.
And how long did it take you to write this? Because you'd already compiled a lot of the research.
I am not you. I can't.
You can't do one book every 6 months.
I can't hammer them out. I had to sit back. So I had done part of the research, but I needed to expand to the rest of the state. Like that book includes, I have Clarence Morse, who's long gone now from Jay. He was a bootlegger, but on the other hand, I had Sterling Weed. He was a band leader who went on to be America's oldest band leader, and he had never touched alcohol, but he had played in the bars as a band person before, during, and after Prohibition. And he died believing that Prohibition was the best thing that ever happened to this country.
Wow.
So it's just like I do with everything. I try to get the different sides.
Yeah, the totally different views.
And his view was. But then, this man, at that time I interviewed him, he was even talking about, he performed for aging Civil War veterans. That's how old he was. He used to laugh. I said, so Sterling, he was in his hundreds, 101, 102. I said, Sterling, so how long are you going to be around? And here's a little political joke he used to say. I am not going anywhere until the Democrats give my money back. And because he lost a bunch of money during the
1920
during the Depression, during the stock market crash, and
a total crash.
And even though it was kind of a political statement, he said it with a bit of tongue in cheek. But he said that he did pass away at 104. So I'm not sure if that means the Democrats gave his money back to him or not. But the thing is I find these older people have such a great sense of, a lot of people look at them as these old people. And they can't see that
they've got a lifetime of experience and information.
Right, and a lot of times they have just a darn good sense of humor.
You have to have.
It's like, for example, I have my buddy Joe Queenan.
Yeah.
When I say he's
great.
He's 92 years old. He's one of my best friends, and we'll go out to the Vermont Pie and Pasta. He's introduced me to Guinness beer. We sit there, have a couple beers, and touch up his obituary occasionally.
My word.
And some people think that's totally bizarre. A lot of people I interview are totally in touch with their mortality, including Joe. And
no, you reminded me of something. In England, one of our great hobbies is actually writing our own obituaries and touching it up over the years, Well, then as the years go on, we'll add a bit or change a bit, make it as exciting as possible. And all our government leaders, their obituaries are written long before they die, and the Queen's was written 25 years ago, so the papers have already got an obituary to push out in the event of, I hope,
I'm going to turn the tables on you. What do you want your obituary to say about you? What do you I don't mean the whole thing.
If it was summed up in one sweet, quick epitaph, I think it would go, she died fighting kicking, struggling, screaming. There's that great
You
poem.
sound like Winston Churchill or something.
On the beaches, in the air, on the sand. I am not a religious person at all. I've read the Quran, the Talmud, and the Bible. And in the Bible, I know one of the things it says is death is the great last final enemy. And I took that literally, like it's something you've got to battle and fight against. So I think, my epitaph would be, she died fighting. What would yours be?
I think mine is he took basically that I took the time to tell the story of the people, giving people a voice.
Brilliant.
And the thing is, I tell my wife this all the time. I take death as a little bit different. Not that I want to go there anytime soon.
No,
but if I were to pull out of this studio parking lot and be flattened by an 18-wheeler,
can you imagine the headline in the
just
paper?
As long as it's quick, I can say, "Damn, it was a good ride." It was. It was. I look back on life and I think, there's little, things I might change. I can't think of any offhand.
No, tweaks that you might.
But I get up every morning. Every once in a while,
You're madly enthusiastic.
Yeah, my wife sometimes just tells me, "Shut up, let me have my cup of coffee first."
Penny's
before you get to, I wake up every morning and I just say, "Hey, it's a new day." And I do have to remind myself that occasionally. I do have to, but for the most part, I feel that way. It's a new day. I'm on this side of the sod, as in,
there's something to be said for that.
Life would be a lot worse if I'm 6 feet under. I don't know if it'll be worse, but the thing is it's a good day. As you know, you are going through struggles of your own with death. I lost my mother, my father-in-law in just a short period of time.
Very close together.
And that can beat you down. But then you just have to pick yourself up. And you have to cherish those memories, but you do have to move forward. And but no, for the most part, I wake up every day. I look forward to it. I look forward to the people I'm going to meet, the people I'm going to interview.
So when you talk about the people you're going to meet, I saw you once coming out of the dog grooming parlour up at Derby, which I use, which is you take Boulder and Molly there. And I thought, how does that man ever get down the street, without being stopped by this person and that person? This. Do you ever get out and then some days decide not to go out because you are so well known?
Well, I love people. I really do. And it sometimes going into the post office can be a challenge. Just because I know everybody, or going to the store, but I really don't mind it. But on the other hand, sometimes we love to travel. We have, I drive junkers so I can travel. I don't like car payments, but I love to travel. And I tell my wife sometimes, you know what? When we're in Arizona or something, it's nice not to know anybody sometimes.
To be totally anonymous.
Right, and occasionally though, it's amazing. You're even traveling, and you're. One time I was sitting in O'Hare Airport,
oh my word.
And all of a sudden I didn't recognize him, but it ended up being Ben Batchelor from Derby, and his son, who's a
Fish and Game.
Right, and brilliant. They were coming back from Montana, and they had these long tubes with them, which I think it was their fly fishing rods. But it's amazing. You do run into people all over the country. But no, back to your question is, I sometimes, much to the chagrin of my kids when they were growing up, is me running into the store while they sat out there. Not just little kids. They would have to come in, Dad. It's time to go.
Yep, we've been waiting 45
so they've
minutes.
gotten kind of used to it, but they did. They're all grown up now.
They are, but you deserve extra congratulations. They're not only all grown up now, they're all married now.
Yeah, they're all married. They all graduated from college.
Wow.
They did, and as I said at my second son's funeral, actually, he's second only by about 2 minutes because they're identical twins. is my wife and I managed to raise 3 kids, put them through college, not one speeding ticket, and because Penny took those lumps. She's the one who took the speeding tickets. But no, we have 1 grandchild.
Congratulations.
And
what's your grandchild's name?
That's Brooke. That's our son Curtis and Gabby's wife. See, my sons have always confused me anyways, and I think sometimes I do this on purpose.
Do they
they're
do it
identical.
on purpose?
No, they're identical twins. They're going to be 30 right off. Now, thanks to a haircut, I can tell them apart really easy.
That's not good enough.
Well, not really easy, but then the thing is they complicated them. We purposely did not name them rhyming names because we wanted to have their own identity.
Totally different names.
And but what do? Curtis marries Gabby.
Okay.
And Nick marries Abby.
Ooh.
And I'm constantly asking Kurt how Abby is, and he'll say, no, I'm married to Gabby. And I know which ones are married to which. It's just that by the time it comes out my mouth, I end up putting them in the wrong place, the wrong kid. And then Emily, who now works for us, she's married, and she's expected in April. And so
congratulations! I don't believe it.
Yeah, we'll have actually a grandchild living in Vermont, because Brooke, who we just absolutely loves, lives 8 hours away.
A long way away.
Well, a lot of people don't realize that there's something north of Caribou, Maine, and it is. They live north of Caribou.
Wow.
That's
quite remote, surely.
Yeah, sure it is. The other one lives in Caribou, and Emily lives in Johnson, Vermont. One lives in north of Caribou in New Sweden. The other one lives in Bangor.
But it was only last July that Emily was, still engaged. She had her fiancé, and she had made that beautiful, exquisite cake, decorated like the American flag for your Veterans Day at the Goodrich Library. It was the most stunning event, and Emily was brilliant.
Yeah, and Emily decides to do something very unique for her wedding. She decides to break her leg before her ankle.
This
wasn't
in the papers.
I mentioned it somewhere along. She was in a mud race, and she went up this pole and had to come down a pole, and she shattered her ankle. So she was married on a little scooter. She couldn't even walk.
This is a story for the record.
Oh, sure.
Books.
But she took it with good grace. Instead of her walking down the aisle, Rob walked down the aisle with the minister.
That is unique and a total reversal of roles.
Would she do it again? Do a race 4 weeks before her wedding? Probably not.
No.
But she was like me. She took it with grace and said, "Okay, we're going to make the best of this."
Brilliant.
And she got married with her broken leg, and so...
I saw Emily's gown, and it was exquisite, but I never realized
underneath her gown... underneath her gown, it was... The reason it was so far out...
It was voluminous.
Because she had her scooter underneath there too.
I just thought it was a full gone with the wind white gown.
It was hiding her scooter.
No wonder.
Yeah.
This is outrageous. Did Emily make the wedding cake?
No. I don't believe she made any of that because of her leg, but she can make cakes, she can do everything. So
would you say out of all your children, perhaps that Emily has taken most after you?
No, Emily is me.
Yes, I would say
even
that.
though she looks exactly like her mother,
beautiful.
Our sons are very focused. They're science. They're very, very focused. It's black and white. Just like Penny. Penny's very precise. She's great at her work. Whereas Emily and I, we're like, hey.
So cosmic, man.
Yeah, and...
Like my brother Paul, who died 2 weeks ago, he was all cosmic and, far out. When I said to him I was getting married, he said, wow, that's really far out, Sharon. Congratulations. You and Emily remind me of Paul so much.
And the thing is And every once in a while she says, "Oh my God, I married my father." Because even though Rob, her husband, is not exactly like me. He works for the federal government. He's an auditor. He dreams in spreadsheets, and he just loves that stuff. I don't.
No.
I can't balance. But on the flip side,
leave you
he has this.
cold.
On the flip side, he has this quirky personality. Like one day when they announced the world's sexiest man on the front cover of a magazine, I sent Emily. I sent her an email. I said, "What the heck?" I said, this was rigged. I said, your father was supposed to be there. And without even telling Rob that I had said that, they were in a checkout line, and Rob looked at that magazine.
National Enquirer
and he said,
something.
"What the heck?" He said, "That should be me." And she said, every once in a while, my words come right out of his mouth.
Out of his mouth. Isn't that uncanny?
Yeah, but no, they say you do it. They say women often marry their fathers.
They do. But you've got a particular whimsical spark about you. You're very imaginative. You spin on a sixpence. Now, I want you to tell me about this book here.
Oh, I grew up. That actually means a lot to me. That book
When Salmon was king.
I grew up on the Clyde River.
This comes from your heart.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
I grew up on this. I grew up on the Clyde River. The Clyde River runs right through Skunk Hollow. That's what we call it. I grew up. We used to in the spring. We used to even poach the Clyde River and
Good man.
have the game warden, who I just to this day, Norman Morrow, is still alive. One of the greatest game wardens there ever was. Even though he cannot, he caught so many people. He can't chalk it up to catching me. But he was just outstanding man. In it there's a chapter dedicated to him, the ghost warden of the Clyde. That man, if they made more lawmen like him, this world would be a better place. He didn't go around with this military haircut. He took his job seriously, but he didn't take himself seriously. And besides that is, you could be looking at a stump, and the next thing you knew, it was him. He just had a way of just coming out of the woodworks, and just a.
I read that bit about how he said someone just slowly emerged from the bushes.
He was great at what he did. And once he caught you, it was all over. He didn't beat you with a nightstick or anything, and he did his job. And when he retired, I think it says a lot about him. When he retired, they had a big event.
Yep.
And you had your die-hard law-abiding people who had never done anything wrong, and then you had your poachers there to all send him off because he was just a good, just a good person. But the book about the Clyde River is just the stories of the Clyde River, of the stories of when it used to be the big fishery. The salmon run of today is only a shadow of what it was back before I even arrived on the scene. We used to fish for walleye, and but the fishery now is I won't say it's gone. It's a lot different. But part of my work too is sometimes, to the chagrin of some people, I try to separate myth from fact.
I find that hard.
And sometimes the myth is far greater than the fact. It's like, for example, the myth of Newport.
Yes.
The future of Newport will never be as grand as the myth of Newport.
Gotcha.
The myth of Newport is that it was once this grand city on, this picturesque place where it was like a Woodstock, Vermont. That's what some people had you. Oh no, Newport has never been that boring. The Newport that really was a far more interesting place. It was not a Woodstock, Vermont. I read some of the stuff I hear about Newport, and I just roll my eyes because
And yet you're only 50,
right,
and you already
downtown Newport had a nice, vibrant downtown. But Newport was poor. The Newport of today is so much nicer than it is of those days because, everybody just looks at Main Street and they judge how Main Street is today compared to yesterday. Well, it's true. Newport's Main Street is down on its luck. But on the other hand, what people forget or don't know is the city dump used to be in a portion of where Gardner Park is today. There was a smoldering dump there. All the sewer went into the lake, but the good thing about Newport was it was a city built on hard work.
Yeah.
It was built on the backs of the railroad men. It was built on the backs of the loggers. They've almost all been written out of history because people don't really want to hear the stories of the people who worked with their hands. And so those are the stories I try to record. It's like Eddie Pirano, who was at D-Day at Omaha Beach, landing troops. Before he went to war, he was a bellhop at the Newport City Hotel, a Newport Hotel on Main Street, where People's Bank is today. He was a bellhop there, and he had a little blue outfit, little gold trim hat. And then when he came back,
so cute.
When he came back, he was a bouncer there, and he was chuckling. Some of these old people like to chuckle about what people envision Newport used to be, and they kind of take out. They talk about how some of the real fun stories are forgotten. He says, if we're going to revitalize Newport and bring it back to what it is, I wonder if they're going to bring back the bar fights.
Yeah, and all the real stuff.
Yeah, he said that back in his day, Newport, in every other community, especially a railroad community, he said we used to have bar fights that spilled out onto the streets, and because Newport was a big boxing town too, and so. He just kind of chuckles about how people who especially aren't from here, how they envision how Newport, and the thing is, when they talk about this, they're not bad-mouthing the city. They're celebrating its rich, it has a rich history, and oftentimes the myths overshadow these railroad men, because Newport was built on the backs of the railroad men.
Absolutely.
And they just out, so some people really don't want me to be a myth buster either. There are people like, I don't shy away from some issues that other people shy away from because we're doomed to repeat ourselves if we don't. I've written extensively about the Ku Klux Klan cross burnings that have occurred in this area, where the city reservoir is, which is only just a short walk from the studio.
What exactly happened
with the
Ku Klux Klan?
The Ku Klux Klan is...
there was also an incident in Island Pond.
Yeah, there was actually Ku Klux Klan cross burnings all over. There was this is another thing that you don't see written much about.
You do not.
Is the Protestants and the Catholics here, they haven't always seen eye to eye.
No.
Most of the time, the people within the community were fine. But the thing is but then you had outside agitators come in from the Ku Klux Klan, and they would burn crosses, and it wasn't against African Americans. It was against, a lot of it was, we had a sizable Jewish population here, but most of it was focused on the French Canadians.
Absolutely.
And
it was racist. I've written myself about the Eugenics Society, how that attacked the French Canadians and Native Americans.
And anybody who had any mental deficiencies.
Yes, or who might have been a socialist or voted communist. And what you're saying is true, it was going on. And I noticed this in Island Pond. You have the Knights of Columbus for the Catholic side and the Masons for the Protestant side, and they really didn't get on way back. So I can see how this grew out in the same way that Prohibition grew out of the early temperance movement. Vermont has these really strong
Right.
trajectory of
Right.
links, so I can feel what you're saying. But I didn't know about the thing at the reservoir.
Yeah,
What-
they had the cross. Well, they had cross, and it wasn't only here. It was all around the Northeast Kingdom and Vermont and the United States. They had the cross burnings. I interviewed people who remembered it vividly. Most of them are now gone. They talked about the 3 crosses they'd have burning, and at that time, that whole hill was deforested, and so you could see the crosses burning all downtown Newport. There are people who just wished I wouldn't write about that
Of course
side.
they would, because they want you to be PC and only write
Right,
about
right.
the
And I don't write
gentrified
about
view.
and I write about it with no sense of pride. I write about it in the sense of history.
Yep.
And I just think it's so important for us to, like, how many people can dedicate a full article on outhouses? I've even written about, it's not, it's like, for example, as I said, on that topic I once interviewed this woman who's still alive. She must be in her 90s now. She had actually served in the Marines during World War II, and I asked her once, I said, if there's one thing that came into your house that you really, really appreciated, a lot of people say, well, plumbing, a lot of people say electricity.
Mm-hmm.
And she said with this sly look on her face, toilet paper.
Oh, so
she
true.
remembers still being able to retire the Sears and Roebuck's catalog,
Yep.
which was used for the same purpose.
Yes, in Britain we used to sit there cutting up the newspaper and then hanging it on a little hook. But one thing you really mentioned was all these fights down in Newport. You're right, there was a Deputy Sweat at the time, SWETT,
Right.
and he even mentions the fights, the knife fights, and the fair that used to come, and when the fair came, the pickpockets would come as well, and women would pretend to faint to cause a distraction, and other people would be doing the dipping. And there were a load of entrepreneurs around at the time, and of course I know that
Don Sleepy McNally, he was
him.
Yeah, he was on that book was a local book because so many of us got our romantic starts at the drive-in. My wife and I went on our first date to the drive-in.
Penny.
And Don McNally.
And little did she know what she was letting herself in
Actually,
for.
here's the secret is when my wife retired from not retired, when she graduated from high school, she was thrilled to be, she was so happy she would never have to take another history class again. She hated history.
Lord.
And she hated history. And she married me.
Yeah.
But the drive-in is basically where Pool and Lumber is today.
Yes.
Many of us went on
spot.
our first dates there, including my wife. And Don McNally went to over 300 schools by the time he graduated from high school because he grew up on the vaudeville circuit, and he and his wife Irene, they built the drive-in, and
wonderfully charitable to the local community.
And this guy here on the front cover of my Clyde River book, he's an interesting character to this day. Here he was as a kid. That he is now Freddie. That's Freddie Carter. Freddie Carter is in his 90s, and Freddie in his 90s still loves to party hard. He's a great guy. Has white hair down to here. He's just like an icon. He still paints. He's a house painter, a church painter, and as we joke is Fred is a perfect example that you don't have to live a totally clean life to live a long life.
Long life.
Because Fred, we grew up in the neighborhood with Fred, and everybody just, when Fred passes away, the world is not going to be nearly as colorful. He is our Willie Nelson.
Yeah. Wow.
So
even there you can see that the long hair was developing. The style was in him.
He said when he was drafted into World War II, but they wouldn't take him because he said we could feed you. They told him we could feed you a bushel of bananas and you still wouldn't be heavy enough because he didn't. I don't think he went 100 pounds. They have a lot of Native American in them, and
very light boned.
and he
very slim.
But so he's still but he's still alive and working, and I believe he's like 92.
Oh my
and he's
word.
one of my. He and his family are some of my biggest supporters. They grew up in Skunk Hollow, and Skunk Hollow won't be the same without Fred.
Sure. I mean, why don't you just admit you were a little gang and you moved as a posse and.
But no, the thing is people ask me, well, what was it like growing up with the Carter boys? I said, Carter boys. The Carter girls were tougher than the guys were. 'Cause they were all tough, and but to this day, I cherish everybody I grew up with, and
you're so lucky.
You know what? One of the best compliments people give me is, no matter how well known I get or whatever, you never forgot who you were, because I'm still that person going down.
That's what I love about you.
Right.
You never forgot your roots. You never became elitist or class-driven,
Yeah.
and that's why you interview the people that you do, because you're not a snob at all.
Oh.
You're real, and I love it.
I'm going to tell you, there is one group that I really struggle with to interview.
Yeah.
If people think they're one step above other people,
I have that problem.
In a sense, they should be interviewed, but I watch people, including some people who think they're somebody. No. You're all just puff and fluff, and I do have a habit of ignoring them, because I do know there's people who run around, their sole ego boost is robbing people.
Yep.
Taking credit for other people's
true
successes.
Recognition.
Right.
That's right. I have this person who continually emails me telling me that her ancestors were, the very first settlers in Island Pond, and they were off the Mayflower and all the rest, and I think that is such crap. I'm going to be honest with you, Scott. I can't stand these elitist snobs. They went to the far-flung outpost of the empire as economic refugees from England 200 years ago, and now their descendants today tell me that they're better than anyone else. And I say, hold it, you're not. And talking of, this sort of thing, I do find it irritating, and it's my pet hate. But I wanted to quickly ask you, I know I keep dragging you back to McNally. Is this, for you, psychologically, was this secretly your romantic trip back to the past?
No.
Because I know that you and Penny were...
No, I just felt that. I felt that story had to be told.
Yeah.
It's a micro book, I only...
So it's not really a tribute to them because of the cinema, because you and Penny did your courting there?
It needed to be told. It's because it meant so much to so many people. It's not like a statewide book that I sold all over the state, like Run Runners and that. And it's like, for example, my next book, I am finally getting.
Oh, finally, the next book.
I'm finally nearing, because I'm not like you. And sometimes I even frustrate my wife about this. Is I need to work on a book, and then I need to set it back, and even let it set for 2 or 3 years. The history of Jay Peak is it's finally taken all the shape. It's coming together. It's now like a puzzle. I'm piecing it together. And if I had cranked that one out, like 2 or 3 years ago, it would not be the book that I am finally just. Because I look at my work sometimes, it's like a jigsaw puzzle. And as you know, though, the one thing I hate is knowing that people are going to, no matter what book you do, people pick up and say, well, how come you didn't do this? Or how come you didn't do that?
I get that all the time. It kills me.
And you have to put it aside, because you almost want to say to them, well, can I see your book?
Yes,
and,
please.
How did your book work out?
How did yours turn out?
And because I think that's the one thing. With Jay Peak, one of my biggest supporters is Bill Stinger. He's a very big supporter of mine. But I know that Jay Peak has such a rich history. It has a fascinating history. I know I'm going to disappoint some people. I know 98% of the people are going to love it. but I always feel kind of bad because you can't get every little component.
It's true.
And here's a question.
Can't.
Have you read any of my work, Our Connection to Donald Trump?
No.
It isn't actually to Donald per se. Ivana Trump, his former wife,
the skiing champion,
taught skiing at JP.
Oh,
And
now I get
so
the connection.
There's our little, now that we're in the political time, when everybody's watching his bombastic ways, you can say, hey, that he once, we have this little connection.
We do, slim
to,
but solid.
To Trump, and I'm not sure if people are proud of it or not, but Ivana taught skiing for a couple of years.
And I wish we had more snow. It's terrible, but I want to wish you and Penny a very happy Christmas, Scott.
Oh, you too.
You're my greatest source of inspiration. Thank you very
thanks.
much. And I know that very, very close to your heart are Boulder and Molly. So this is from my two dogs, Theo and Ellie. That's for Boulder, and that's for Molly. And don't tell me these two don't look exactly like your dogs. This is exactly what Boulder and Molly look like, almost exactly.
Right. And I am giving you, you've given me your books, and here's my books to you. So
my word.
And
this is brilliant. If you want to find out how to get copies of these books, contact Scott. He has the Northland Journal here, which comes out every month, and this has been a brilliant source of research for me. The stories are really entertaining.
Right.
I'd like to say a very happy Christmas to all you viewers and your relatives. And I'm going to give the last word to Scott Wheeler because he's always my man of the moment. So if Scott wants to thank anyone, he's going to do it now. Scott, thank you.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me on, but also thank you for recording bits and pieces of our history, because we're never going to run out of material.
No.
And besides that, some people say, you're going to run out of old people to interview. No. We make old people every day. And you know what always fascinates me? In my mind, I'm sitting here as a 25-year-old buff guy with a lot of hair. Then I see the photo come back and I think, hey, wait a minute. There's a bald middle-aged guy there. What the heck?
Well,
in my mind, I'm still 25.
Never let the truth interfere with a good story. Happy Christmas,
All right.
Scott.
And thank you for tuning in to her show.
It's really him. It's all about Scott Wheeler. You know that. Happy Christmas to you.
Thank you.
Cheers.